Environment is everything because environment is energy. And you need to make sure that the environment that you are creating intrapersonally, interpersonally, and physically is going to give you the energy you need in order to live out your purpose with confidence. Period. What's up, team? Welcome back to Practice the Podcast, where we fuse research and culture to help you develop the mindset, habits, and skills that you need in order to live out your purpose with confidence. I'm your host, Coach Rees. Now it's time to get better. Let's go.
We talking about practice. Not a game. We talking about practice.
Practices are meant to be competitive. They're meant to be competitive. If your practices aren't more competitive than the games themselves, you're doing the wrong thing.
Yo. I'm excited as always because we're talking about something that is really important to me in this specific season. All these things are important, but in this moment, this one is really big. And I hope that I am able to keep my talking pace down because y'all know when I get excited that I like to speed it up. But this joint right here that we're talking about environment. And I'm not talking about the world environment, the planet, because that's very, very important. That's just not my lane. But we're talking about your intrapersonal and your interpersonal and your physical environment. Environment is everything because environment is energy. Ooh, boy. Environment is everything because environment is energy. And the energy that your environment creates will dictate the level that you elevate. The energy that your environment creates, y'all, will dictate how much you elevate. Okay? And so the quote that we're going with today is from Uncle Steve Harvey, where he says, you duplicate your surroundings. And I'm going to get to this in a minute when I get to story time, but Uncle Steve says you duplicate your surroundings. And I 100% think this is true, which is why I'm saying your environment is everything because your environment is energy. And the energy that your environment creates, y'all, will dictate how much you elevate. And so the song, though, for today, Ooh Wee, is Rich Spirit by Kendrick Lamar. I was a big fan of this album when it came out, but Rich Spirit just, stop playing with me before I turn you to a song. Ayy, I'm attractive. I can't message you no more. I'm fasting. That line right there is, I'm attractive. I can't message you no more. I'm fasting. That right there, that's the bar for me. And that's what we're going to tap into when we're talking about our interpersonal. Okay, I want you to hold on to that rich spirit because that's the intra that dictates your interpersonal. You know what I mean? So you're like, okay, Coach Rees, you're geeked. Let's get after it. Okay. So the research though behind all this is psychological well-being. Okay, so again, and this is one of my favorite terms, and a lot of this stuff, research is going to be grounded in this because that's my area of expertise. And psychological well-being, the reason why it's so important is because your high psi cap, your ability to have high psychological capital, okay, which hones in on hope, optimism, self-efficacy, and confidence. Right? And resilience is, if you have that and it's high, that is going to give you the energy you need to execute on your purpose. That's going to give you what you need to live out your purpose with confidence. But the psychological well-being, your psychological well-being can be damaged, can decrease based off of your environment. You can have low hope. You can have low optimism. You could become a pessimist based off of your environment. Because again, the energy from your environment dictates how much you elevate. And if your environment is giving you low, negative, and bad energy, you ain't elevating that high. So now let's get into story time, y'all. Let's get it. So Steve Harvey, actually, I'm going to take this full circle. I was doing an interview with somebody recently, and they were talking to me about this story, and then cool enough, they ended up sending me the actual clip, and it came from Steve Harvey. He was telling a story, and the story is this. Did you know a flea can jump has a 36-inch vertical? Like, first of all, that's mad high. And then when I think about it, I'm like, don't fleas have wings? And I didn't do no research on that, so I'm not really gonna talk about that piece, but just hone in with the story. So fleas have a 36-inch vertical, which is crazy. But the moral of the story is, the point of the story is, if you were to take a bunch of fleas and you put them in a jar, the flea knows that it can jump up and out of there because I got a 36-inch vert. Can you imagine? Buckets, bang outs. Small story segment. Hold on with me. When I was in high school, I used to pray and ask God to allow me to dunk, and I would give him the glory. So funny, no lie. So like, I was like, let me just have a big vert. I'll give you the glory and bang out for Jesus. True story. Okay, back to this. So a flea has a 36-inch vert. So if you put a bunch of fleas in a jar, they can jump out. But if you put a lid on it and they eventually start jumping and hitting their head on the lid over and over, you're gonna be like, I'm hitting my head. So what are you gonna do? What's the flea gonna do? The flea's gonna stop jumping. So then its environment, right, now becomes this maybe just 12 inches. So instead of the full 36 that could have escaped them or allowed them to escape out of the jar and environment, they see that I can only jump 12 inches. They see everybody else around them only jumping 12 inches because don't nobody want to hit their head no more, right? So they just chill. So then you take the lid off, and then what happens? So in this, Steve Harvey says, our quote is, you duplicate your surroundings. And the reason why this is so important is because oftentimes we put ourselves in situations, whether it be intrapersonally, like dealing with ourselves, or interpersonally in our friend group, physically, we make our environments, sometimes our environments prevent us from being able to elevate or reach our potential and our capacity, right? Because of how our environment is shaped and shifted, and because of what I see, because the people around me. And here's the unfortunate part is, right, like, I don't want to get too deep into this, but we know that systemically there have been structures and constructs to our cities, especially for Black and brown folks who may have been raised in the hood, came from the hood, whatever, right? Like that was an intentional structuring of trying to get people in a specific space. But what this does, right, is it prevents us from being able to see something. And this is why self-efficacy, which is a concept of psychological well-being and psychological capital, self-efficacy, a part of that is vicarious experience. And a vicarious experience is my ability to see other people doing, right? Seeing other people be able to navigate through difficult times. Like self-efficacy is a belief in myself that I can endure difficulties. It's a confidence that I have that, you know what? I can do this. I can go through adverse experience and adverse times, and I can excel through them and go on, right? That's a part of that mindset. And so what happens now is if I see other people do it, that's vicarious experience. But if my physical environment, my interpersonal environment does not have other people in it who also have self-efficacy, who also are trying really hard, who are also trying to move the needle forward just a little bit, then I'm going to think, well, I mean, if they can't, I can't. And this is why I'm a big fan of social media, because you can see other people who are similar to you, similar situations, who can be role models. And this is why be the model is my motto, is because somebody needs you. Somebody needs you to be the model for whatever it is that you may not even put enough respect on whatever your lived experience is, but somebody needs you to be the model for that thing for them. You may be going through what you're going through, not just for you, but for them. Right now, it might feel like, but I promise you, your purpose is connected to people, and you're going through this not just for you, but for them. So I need you to be the model that somebody else needs you to be, and I need you to model what it looks like to endure. I need you to model what it looks like to persevere. I need you to model what it looks like to be resilient through opposition, because it's not if, it's when. And if you have the mindset that says, I can do this, I can get through this, I've been through tough times before, I understand that opposition is a part of the process. And because I understand that opposition is a part of the process, I'm going to equip myself with the mindset, habits, and skills that I need to persevere through the opposition. But if your environment does not prepare you to do that, it ain't gonna matter. Okay. So when we're talking about environment, I want to break it down in a couple different ways. Okay. I said your environment is energy. Your environment is energy, and your energy must be protected, which means you must protect your environment. So first, I want to talk about intrapersonal. Intrapersonal is me internally. We're talking about the spirit, your soul, your mind, your thoughts, your self-talk. That is all things that have to do with me. This is why I chose the song for this episode, is because Kendrick talked about having a rich spirit. Like, sure, you can have money, but like if your spirit is poor, what does it matter? If your interpersonal environment is dormant, if it's impoverished, if it's just not flourishing, if it's not abundant, then what does it matter? If your thought process is poor, what does it matter if you got money? You know what I'm saying? If your self-talk is negative and destructive, then what does it matter? And so it all starts with my intrapersonal environment. So we'll talk about the mind. Is how are you talking to yourself? What are you listening to, right? Like, what do you need in order for you to have a rich spirit? How much self-reflection and self-awareness are you doing and growing in? What are your thoughts, right? Like, what are the things that you think, and are you aware of the things that you think, so that way you can capture the thoughts that do not align with the truth? So your internal mental environment is the most important thing, and it has to be protected at all costs. Because if you just allow other things to come in that influence your thought process in a way that doesn't align with your mission, vision, purpose, and who it is that you want to be, you will be swayed into thinking opposite, and a little turn to the left is all that has to happen in order for you to go off in the wrong direction. Because I want you to think about this too, this is where imposter syndrome comes into play. If you aren't aware, imposter syndrome thoughts can rise up and then now prevent you from being able to execute on what you're supposed to execute on, because you're thinking about something that's not in alignment with your truth. And so your environment, what you feed yourself, is important. And I'm not talking about physically with food, but that's another part of it. But intrapersonally, how are you feeding your spirit? Think about how you're feeding your mind. Think about the thoughts that you're thinking. What are the thoughts that you're thinking? Think about the thoughts you're thinking. Be intentional to think about the thoughts you're thinking. Don't just think the thoughts. Think about the thoughts. Thoughts. Tatianas. Anyways, we're not going to go there. So self-talk is important. Think about or become aware about the way that you're talking to yourself. So the first thing I'll say is listen to yourself, to become aware of how you're talking to yourself, and then rewire the sentences in alignment with the truth, in alignment with what's going to give you confidence, in alignment with what's going to fuel you. Okay? That's what I want you to think about. So the intrapersonal aspect of your environment is the most important aspect, because when you have a rich spirit, the energy that flows from a rich spirit is abundant. The energy that flows from a rich spirit is, in my eyes, limitless. That's the root that bears the fruit of all things it is that you ultimately desire. So having a rich spirit, having a spirit of peace, having a spirit of love and joy, and laughter, and those are the things that are going to help increase your psychological capital, help increase your well-being, help increase your overall confidence, because the root of who you are, which is your heart and mind and soul, right? Having that rich spirit is in such a good space. Anything can happen. You'll feel the pain, you'll go through the grief, but you'll know that you can endure this difficult situation. So now I want to talk about from the interpersonal space, because when you have a rich spirit intrapersonally, your energy will start to feel different. So you are going to move different. And listen to the words, right? In Kendrick's song, he's like, ooh, I'm attractive. I can't mess with you no more. I'm fasting. And so interpersonally is now, who are you doing life with? What's the environment like within your relationships? When I talk about environment, I'm talking about the communication style, the boundaries, the interactions, the capacity, the expectations that you have with who you do life with. That's that interpersonal environment that you create. Also, when you are going with certain people, You feel the energy that they're not coming with. If their spirit ain't rich and your spirit's rich and you're just in two different spaces, again, your environment is everything because your environment is energy. So if you're bringing energy into a space and somebody else's, you might clash if those energies are in two different spaces and that person isn't willing, or you ain't willing, whoever it is, to be able to move towards a rich and healthy space, right? And create that interpersonally. But it doesn't matter if the interpersonal environment is poor, if it's not healthy. It doesn't matter how interpersonally rich that you are if they are not also. So then y'all have to do the work to be able to make sure that this is, what's the word I'm saying? That this mutually, right? Like it is mutually beneficial for everybody. And this is what's going to dictate how intimate we can do life together, right? How rich is that person? How much are they taking care of their own spirit? So that way they can make sure the energy that they're bringing into the environment that y'all do a life together is in alignment, right? The other thing is, think about the movies and the music and the comments you read, like all this stuff. Like, what are you allowing to be poured into your spirit, right? Like, I think about reading certain comments. Like, I don't want to read certain comments because they're going to just become distractions that plant certain things in my mind that it disrupt my energy, that disrupt my internal environment. And that's not something that becomes beneficial. And so don't allow yourself to get caught up into allowing yourself to listen to different music that disturbs your spirit, or watch movies and comments that just don't sit right with you. All right, so now let's talk about the physical environment, right? Like the physical environment of our living spaces, our workspaces, like the spaces that we physically occupy. And again, environment is everything because environment is energy. So you need to be intentional with how your spaces make you feel, or you need to be intentional with knowing how your spaces make you feel, but be intentional with creating certain feelings within the spaces. Because if your workspace and your sleeping space doesn't feel good and give you what you need, it will impact you, right? So I know for some folks it's easier said than others because some may have more control and freedom over that. But you can always do some type of something in order to make sure that the spaces that you are working within are beneficial and giving you the energy that you need. The other thing though, that's really big is like your living space. And it never feels good to be able, and it never feels good to have to walk on eggshells in your living space. And so this is for the people who have control over their living space, and have who have more control over the decisions that they make, have more freedom, right? I know for cats who are younger, you don't always have control over that. But for those of us who, have the ability to choose who and how they live with and freedom with it, be aware of the energy that's created in the spaces, in your environment. Do you got to walk on eggshells? When you pull up to the house, does it make you feel some type of way? When somebody gets home, does your body, when you hear certain doors close, do you do certain things? And now you're like, your nervous system has been alert in a certain way because the environment has been impacted, and it now impacts your intrapersonal system, right? Because just what I talked about, your interpersonal relationships are impacted by other people's interpersonal spirit. And so you need to make sure that when you are doing life with people in any way, that you're on the same page, right? That you can have conversations, you can communicate, because the physical environment of where you live, eat, and sleep should be healthy. You shouldn't have to be wary or conscious about, certain things that just shouldn't have to be the case. I know I've been in situations like that, especially with being somebody who opens up their house to other people that I do and don't know, right? Like that is something why I could talk about this in such an intimate way, because I've had to walk on eggshells at the house. I've had to be able to figure out how do I have difficult conversations. I've had to figure out how do I navigate this, and was like, ooh, I don't like this. And being an Airbnb host has taught me a lot about boundaries interpersonally and intrapersonally, because you get violated sometimes. So you're like, ooh, I don't like that. Here's a boundary that I need to put up. And so your living space, how you do life with people, it tells you a lot about how your interpersonal spirit is, how you want things to be when it comes to your relationships, and what you need out of your environment. So the moral of all of this is check the energy that your spaces give you. Okay, check the feelings that they give you. Check the spaces. Check it. Just check it. And check it by becoming more aware. And think about your workspace. Like, do you have the tools that you need in order to execute at a high level, right? Do you have the tools that allow you to get the job done? Do you have the space that allows you to do what you need to do? And sometimes you may not. So then that means from a mental capacity stance, you have to be able to say, okay, I need to endure through this so that way I can make some more bread or do whatever that means in order for me to be able to get the tools that I need to execute or create the working space that I need. But what I'm kind of talking about now is like clutter. I don't do well with clutter. Like, my brain needs organization. I need this. I need repetitiveness. I need all of that. I need clean. I need order. In order for me to be able to execute at a high level for multiple reasons, I need to know where things are quick, fast, in a hurry. That helps me be more efficient. That helps me execute at a greater pace. But some people are like, I know where everything's at. I can thrive in chaos. Nope, not me, not I. But you got to know yourself. I know what helps keep my spirit rich, and that is a clean space, an orderly space. And I know where I'm at intrapersonally when I can look around my environment and be like, ooh, yep. And it happens, y'all, because life happens, and life happens at such a fast pace sometimes that you often have to slow down and check your environment. And our external environments, our physical environments often are a reflection of us internally. Okay. So that's really the moral of the story, is oftentimes our external environments will tell us everything we need to know about how we feel on the inside, what we tolerate on the inside, the boundaries that we have and haven't set or need to make sure that we are that much more open about. Okay. So that's what I want you to think about, y'all, is interpersonally, right? That's me. What do I have? A rich spirit? Do I have healthy self-talk? Do I have thought processes and a mindset that's in alignment with who it is that I want to be? From an interpersonal space, how are my relationships? How's the environment in the energy that's given within my relationships? What is it externally that I'm allowing into me, pouring into me, that's influencing my thought process, that's influencing my spirit? And then physically, okay? Physically, what is my lifestyle? What is my living environments? What's my room, my workspace, my sleeping space, all of that, because the energy in these environments will impact you on a level that sometimes you can't see until it's too late. Or sometimes you can't see until you're like, oh, shoot, I need to change this. So become aware of what your environments look like intrapersonally, interpersonally, and physically, right? Skills and drills time. Let's make it happen. Here are 3 things, 3 skills, 3 drills that I think that you can do and need to do in order for you to make sure that your environment is generating the energy that you need it to. Number 1, do an audit. Do an audit on your interpersonal, and physical spaces. Take some time, right? Because the focus of this season again is, how do I win in the new year? It is February 18th. And if you did an audit right now, you could know, say, okay, what do I need? What's not happening? What's going on? How do I feel? Okay, you don't got to wait till spring to start cleaning. You can do the cleanup right now. So do an audit. Number 2, create spaces that influence confident energy. The energy that you want to give off is that confident energy. So interpersonally, interpersonally, and in your physical spaces. When I walk in my office, I feel like, okay, I'm about to execute. When I go to bed, my bed is set up, my bed is made. I make my bed every morning, so I go get in it. I know I'm gonna have a good night's sleep. Okay, like, you want to be able to set yourself up to have confident energy. I know that internally I feel confident. I know in my relationships I feel confident because the environments are created for us to have that good energy. Okay. The last thing I need you to do, I need you to write a list. Write a list of the things that get you going. A lot of times we don't know what we need in order to get our spirits up. We don't know what our environment needs. So take inventory on, like, oh, I need to make sure I have water next to me. I need to make sure that my environment has some type of food next to me that I can pick and grab at. I need to make sure for me that I have specific playlists that set the tone. I need to make sure that I journal. You need to know what helps your environment give you the energy that you need it to. For me, I needed to paint this back wall. Like, I wanted to make it happen for so long. And once I did, I was like, ooh, I like that. So and this is kind of an aesthetic thing, right? Aesthetics are a thing because they give you creative energy. They give you the energy that you need. And so it's important for you to know that. And oftentimes we don't take enough time to know what it is that we need in order to make our environment the environment that we need. Okay. So here it is, y'all. Environment is everything because environment is energy. And you need to make sure that the environment that you are creating intrapersonally, interpersonally, and physically is going to give you the energy you need in order to live out your purpose with confidence. Period. It's going to give you the energy you need to elevate, the energy you need to execute, the energy you need to be excellent, elite, all the above. Check your environments, y'all. All right, that's it. I hope that you felt like you came to practice and got better today. This is Practice the Podcast. Until next time, I'm here for you. I believe in you, and I need you to know that you are worthy of being the model that somebody needs you to be. Until next time, peace.